Listen to me. This is important. Right now, while you're watching this video, your muscles are in a state of flux. Either you're building muscle or you're losing it. There is no middle ground. And if you're over 60 and you're not doing one very specific thing at every single meal, I can tell you with absolute certainty which direction you're heading. You're losing muscle, and you probably don't even realize it's happening. I've been practicing medicine for over 25 years. And one of the most preventable health crises I see in my older patients is something called sarcopenia. That's a fancy medical term that simply means the loss of muscle mass and function that comes with aging. And here's what bothers me. Most people don't even know they have it until they fall. Until they can't get up from a chair without using their arms. Until they realize they're becoming frail. But sarcopenia is not inevitable. It's not just something that happens to you because you're getting older. It's largely preventable. And the solution is simpler than you might think. It comes down to one single thing: how much protein you eat at each meal. My name is Dr. David Miller, and today I'm going to explain exactly what's happening in your muscles right now, why most people are making a critical mistake with their nutrition, and what you need to do starting with your next meal to stop losing muscle and start protecting your independence. Let me start with the reality of aging. After the age of 30, your body naturally loses muscle mass. But it's not a steady decline. Between 30 and 50, you lose about 3 to 8% of your muscle mass per decade. That's noticeable but manageable. But after 60, that rate accelerates. You can lose up to 8% per decade. For some people, it's even faster. Think about what that means. If you've maintained the same weight since you were 60, but you're now 70, you haven't really maintained anything. You've lost muscle and gained fat. Your body composition has fundamentally changed. You're lighter, but you're weaker. You're frilier. And here's the problem. This change happens silently. You don't feel it happening. You don't wake up one day and think, I've lost 15 pounds of muscle. It happens so gradually that by the time you notice, significant damage has already occurred. You try to open a jar and realize you can't. You walk upstairs and feel exhausted. You try to get up from the floor and realize you need help. The research on sarcopenia is sobering. Studies show that sarcopenia affects 30% of people over 60 years old. That's nearly 1 in 3. For people over 80, it's more than 50%. More than half of people over 80 have sarcopenia, and sarcopenia has real consequences. People with sarcopenia have higher rates of falls. They have higher rates of fractures. They lose their independence. They end up in nursing homes. In fact, sarcopenia is one of the strongest predictors of disability and mortality in older adults. But here's what gives me hope. Sarcopenia is preventable. It's not like Alzheimer's or cancer where we're still searching for cures. The mechanism of sarcopenia is well understood, and we know how to prevent it. The solution is right in front of us. It's in what you eat. Now let me explain the biology of what's happening in your muscles. Your muscles are made of protein. And that protein is constantly being broken down and rebuilt. This is a normal process called protein turnover. When you're young, the rate of muscle protein synthesis, the rate at which your body builds new muscle protein, equals or exceeds the rate of protein breakdown. So your muscle mass stays stable or increases. But as you age, something changes. The rate of muscle protein breakdown stays about the same or even increases. But the rate of muscle protein synthesis slows down. Your body becomes less efficient at building new muscle protein. This is called anabolic resistance. Your muscles have literally become resistant to the normal signals that tell them to grow. This is where protein intake becomes absolutely critical. When you eat protein, your body breaks it down into amino acids. These amino acids are absorbed into your bloodstream. And there's one amino acid in particular that's the key trigger for muscle protein synthesis. It's called leucine. Leucine is a branched-chain amino acid, and it has a unique property. When leucine levels in your muscle tissue rise after a meal, it activates something called the mTORC1 pathway. Think of mTORC1 as the master switch for muscle protein synthesis. When that switch is turned on, your body builds muscle. When it's off, your body doesn't build muscle. Here's the problem. Because of anabolic resistance, older adults need more leucine to flip that switch than younger people do. Young people can eat 15 grams of protein and trigger muscle protein synthesis. But older adults need more. Research has established that to maximally stimulate muscle protein synthesis in people over 60, you need approximately 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein per meal. And that protein needs to contain about 3 to 4 grams of leucine. Let me say that again because this is critical. 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein at each meal. Not per day, per meal. At breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner. Now here's the tragedy. The latest data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, that's NANS, a massive study of Americans, found that 46% of people over 60 don't get enough protein. Not overall, but at each individual meal. Most older adults get most of their protein at dinner. They might eat only 10 or 15 grams of protein at breakfast, 15 grams at lunch, and then 40 grams at dinner. But your muscles don't care about your daily total. Your muscles respond to what you eat at each meal. So if you eat 15 grams of protein at breakfast, you're not triggering muscle protein synthesis. Your muscles aren't being stimulated to grow or maintain themselves. That meal is essentially wasted from a muscle-building perspective. Let me tell you about a patient of mine named Richard. Richard was 73 when he came to see me. He was complaining of fatigue. He said he felt weaker than he used to. He couldn't carry groceries from the car to the house without stopping to rest. He was becoming frail. When I examined Richard, I measured his grip strength. Grip strength is one of the best predictors of overall health and longevity in older adults. Richard's grip strength was significantly below normal for his age. I sent him for a DEXA scan, which measures bone and muscle mass. The results showed he had moderate sarcopenia. But here's what was interesting. When I asked Richard about his diet, he said he was eating enough protein. He said he was eating chicken, beef, fish. He thought he was doing everything right. The problem was meal distribution. Richard's typical day looked like this. For breakfast, he had oatmeal with berries, maybe 10 grams of protein. For lunch, he had a salad with some grilled chicken, maybe 20 grams of protein. For dinner, he ate a large steak, potato, vegetables, maybe 55 grams of protein. His total daily protein intake was fine, but his breakfast wasn't triggering muscle protein synthesis. His lunch was borderline. Only his dinner was adequate. I changed Richard's approach. I told him to eat 25 to 30 grams of protein at every meal. For breakfast, instead of just oatmeal, he added 2 eggs and some Greek yogurt. For lunch, he increased his chicken portion and added a protein shake. At dinner, he kept his steak but made sure it was substantial enough. Within 3 months, Richard reported feeling stronger. His fatigue improved. 6 months later, I retested his grip strength. It had improved significantly. A year later, his follow-up DEXA scan showed he had actually regained muscle mass. He was no longer sarcopenic. Richard didn't do anything complicated. He didn't start going to the gym. He didn't take expensive supplements. He simply changed how he distributed his protein intake across his meals. Now let me explain what counts as high-quality protein. High-quality protein contains all 9 essential amino acids in the right proportions. Animal proteins, beef, chicken, fish, eggs, dairy, are complete proteins. They contain all the essential amino acids. Plant proteins like beans and lentils are lower in some essential amino acids, particularly leucine, though you can combine them with grains to get a complete protein profile. For beef or chicken or fish, you need about 3 to 4 ounces to get 25 to 30 grams of protein. For eggs, that's roughly 3 large eggs. For Greek yogurt, that's about 1 cup. For milk, it's about 2.5 cups. For whey protein powder, it's 1 scoop mixed with liquid. The key is getting that leucine trigger. The foods highest in leucine are meat, fish, eggs, and dairy products. If you're eating plant-based proteins, you need to eat larger quantities or combine them with other sources to get enough leucine. Let me talk about what happens if you don't get enough protein at a meal. When you eat only 15 grams of protein, let's say that salad at lunch, your body does break it down into amino acids. But it's not enough to strongly activate mTORC1. Muscle protein synthesis increases slightly, but not maximally. Your muscles receive a weak signal to grow or maintain themselves. Meanwhile, muscle protein breakdown continues at its normal rate. So you end up with a net loss of muscle tissue. And this happens 3 times a day if you're eating inadequate protein at multiple meals. Over months and years, that adds up to significant muscle loss. But when you eat 25 to 30 grams of protein, everything changes. mTORC1 is strongly activated. Muscle protein synthesis increases dramatically. For several hours after that meal, your muscles are in an anabolic state, a state of building. If you combine that with even modest physical activity like walking or light resistance exercise, the effect is even more pronounced. And here's something important. It's not just about eating enough protein. The timing matters. Your muscles need adequate protein throughout the day. Research has shown that spreading protein evenly across 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, is more effective for maintaining and building muscle than eating most of your protein in one large meal. Think about it biologically. Every meal is an opportunity to trigger muscle protein synthesis. If you skip that opportunity at breakfast and lunch, you're missing 2 out of 3 signals per day. You're essentially working with 1/3 of the muscle-building stimulus you could have. Now let me address something that concerns many of my patients. They worry that eating more protein will damage their kidneys. This is a